Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering you've just won millions of dollars. No more worrying about bills. No more checking your bank account before making a purchase. No more wondering if you'll ever achieve financial freedom. For most people, winning the lottery sounds like the happiest day of their lives. But what happens when a life-changing fortune brings unexpected challenges? Today, we're looking at 5 real stories of lottery winners who had everything: millions of dollars, incredible opportunities, and a chance at a completely different life. But somehow they lost their fortunes. In 1988, William Post was living a life far away from wealth and luxury. He was 49 years old and had struggled financially for much of his life. Bud was not a successful businessman. He was not an experienced investor. He had never managed millions of dollars. Before his lottery win, he was simply an ordinary man trying to build a more stable life. Bud's personal life had also been complicated. He had been married several times and had children from previous relationships. Like many families, they had experienced their own challenges long before money ever became part of the story. Then, one day, everything changed. Bud bought a ticket for the Pennsylvania lottery. At first, it was just a small purchase, but when the winning numbers were announced, Bud discovered something unbelievable. He had won $16.2 million. Overnight, a man who had spent years worrying about money became a multi-millionaire. For Bud, the lottery seemed like a second chance. He imagined a different future, a comfortable home, financial security, the ability to help his family. At first, he wanted to share his success with the people around him. But becoming wealthy so suddenly created problems that he never expected. One of the biggest challenges was learning who he could trust. After the win, relatives, friends, and people from his past began approaching him for money. Some asked for financial help. Others had business ideas they wanted him to support. Bud suddenly found himself surrounded by people who viewed him differently because of his fortune. The money that was supposed to bring his family closer together started creating tension and disagreements. One of the most shocking moments involved Bud's brother. Authorities later discovered that his brother had allegedly discussed a plan to harm him in order to gain access to his fortune. The plan was stopped before anything happened, but the situation deeply affected Bud. For someone who had hoped his winnings would bring happiness to his family, it was a painful realization that money could also create distrust. But the problems were not only coming from other people. Bud also struggled with managing the fortune himself. He had never received financial education or experience handling large amounts of money. Without a clear plan, he began making decisions that would slowly reduce his wealth. He bought expensive items. He gave away large amounts of money. He invested in business ideas without enough knowledge or preparation. At one point, Bud purchased an airplane and became involved in ventures that did not succeed. The millions that once seemed endless began disappearing. Within only a few years, his financial situation changed dramatically. By 1993, just 5 years after winning the jackpot, Bud filed for bankruptcy. The man who once had more than $16 million was now struggling financially again. But losing the money was only one part of his story. The biggest lesson from Bud's experience was how sudden wealth affected his relationships and his family. The fortune that was supposed to create a better life brought pressure, conflict, and uncertainty instead. Later in life, Bud admitted that winning the lottery did not bring the happiness he expected. The money gave him opportunities, but it also introduced problems he had never faced before. William Bud Post III passed away in 2006 at the age of 66. His story remains one of the most famous examples of how receiving a fortune overnight does not automatically create financial security, because earning millions and keeping millions require two completely different skills, and Bud Post learned that lesson the hard way. In 2002, Michael Carroll was just 19 years old. He was working as a garbage collector in Norfolk, England, earning a modest income and living a very ordinary life. But everything changed when he bought a national lottery ticket. At the time, Michael had no idea that this small purchase would turn him into one of the most famous lottery winners in the United Kingdom. When the winning numbers were announced, Michael discovered that he had won an incredible £9.7 million. Overnight, a teenager with a regular job became a multi-millionaire. For most people, winning that amount of money would be the beginning of a carefully planned new life. But Michael was only 19 years old. He had never managed millions of pounds before. And suddenly, he had access to more money than he could have imagined. At first, the attention felt exciting. Michael bought a large house, expensive cars, and luxury items that were completely different from his previous lifestyle. He became known in the British media as the Lotto Lout because of his extravagant spending and party lifestyle. Millions of pounds disappeared on expensive purchases, nights out, and a lifestyle that was impossible to maintain. But the biggest problem wasn't just what Michael bought. It was that he believed the money would never run out. He didn't have a financial plan. He didn't work with professional advisors. And he never truly learned how to manage the fortune that had arrived so suddenly. Over the years, Michael spent large amounts of money trying to maintain the same lifestyle. He bought multiple properties. He purchased luxury vehicles. He gave money to friends and people around him. But without a stable source of income, his fortune slowly started disappearing. The person who had once been worth nearly £10 million eventually found himself back in a very different situation. By 2013, only about 10 years after his big win, Michael said that almost all of the money was gone. The millionaire lifestyle had disappeared. But surprisingly, Michael didn't say he regretted everything. Later in life, he admitted that his experience taught him important lessons about money. He returned to work, taking ordinary jobs and living a much simpler life than before. Instead of luxury cars and expensive purchases, he focused on stability and spending time with his family. Looking back, Michael said that winning millions at such a young age was both a blessing and a challenge. The money gave him opportunities most people never experience. But without experience, discipline, and financial knowledge, even millions can disappear faster than anyone expects. On Christmas Day in 2002, Jack Whittaker was living a comfortable but ordinary life. He was 55 years old, owned a successful construction company, and had built a stable future through years of hard work. He already had something many people dream about: financial security. But everything changed when he stopped at a small convenience store in West Virginia and bought a Powerball ticket. At the time, it seemed like just another lottery ticket. But a few days later, Jack discovered something that would completely change his family's future. He had won $314.9 million. It was one of the biggest lottery jackpots in American history. After choosing the cash option and paying taxes, Jack received approximately $113 million. Suddenly, an ordinary family became one of the wealthiest lottery-winning families in the United States. At first, Jack wanted to use his money to make a difference. He donated millions of dollars to charities, helped local communities, and supported people who were struggling financially. His generosity quickly made him one of the most famous lottery winners in America. But becoming wealthy overnight also changed the world around him. People who had never contacted him before suddenly wanted to be part of his life. Some asked for financial help. Others saw his fortune as an opportunity. Jack later admitted that one of the hardest parts of winning wasn't managing the money. It was knowing who truly cared about him. His family also struggled with the sudden change. Jack was especially close to his granddaughter, Brandy. He wanted the money to create a better future for her. But growing up surrounded by sudden wealth brought its own challenges. Over time, Brandy faced personal struggles, and in 2004, she passed away at a young age. The loss had a devastating impact on Jack and his family. For someone who believed money could help protect the people he loved, it was a painful reminder that wealth could not solve every problem. At the same time, Jack's fortune began disappearing. He gave away large amounts of money, faced legal disputes, and became the target of people trying to take advantage of his generosity. He also experienced several incidents where large amounts of cash were taken from him. The lifestyle that came with sudden wealth became increasingly complicated. Years later, Jack admitted that winning the lottery had not brought the happiness he expected. Instead, it brought attention, pressure, and personal struggles that he never imagined. In interviews, he famously said, "I wish I'd torn that ticket up." Jack Whittaker passed away in 2020 at the age of 72. His story remains one of the most famous examples of how receiving a massive fortune overnight can create challenges just as big as the opportunity itself. Winning millions changed Jack's bank account instantly, but it also changed his entire life. In 2003, in Cumbria, England, Callie Rogers was just 16 years old. Unlike many lottery winners who had years of financial experience, Callie was still a teenager trying to figure out her own future. At the time, she was working at a local supermarket, earning a low hourly wage and living with her foster parents, Brian and Sheila Holmes. Her life before the lottery was very different from the one that came after. She was not born into wealth. She did not grow up surrounded by financial security, and she had never experienced managing large amounts of money. Then one lottery ticket changed everything. Callie won £1.87 million in the national lottery, becoming the youngest jackpot winner in British history at just 16 years old. Overnight, a teenager living an ordinary life became a millionaire. At first, Callie wanted to use the money to help the people closest to her. She bought a home, helped family members, and spent money on gifts for friends and relatives. But the biggest challenge was that she received a life-changing fortune before she was emotionally prepared for it. At 16, most people are still learning basic financial responsibility. Callie suddenly had millions of pounds and the attention that came with it. The money changed not only her lifestyle, but also the way people around her viewed her. She later spoke about the pressure of becoming famous overnight and how difficult it was to understand who genuinely cared about her and who was interested in her wealth. As the years passed, her priorities changed. Callie became a mother and started focusing more on family life. However, the fortune that once seemed unlimited gradually disappeared through spending, lifestyle changes, and financial decisions made without enough experience. Years later, Callie admitted that winning such a large amount of money at such a young age was extremely difficult. She said that if she had received better financial guidance, things might have been different. Today, Callie lives a much quieter life and focuses on raising her children. Her story is not just about losing millions. It is about what happens when someone receives a life-changing amount of money before they are ready for the responsibility that comes with it. Because sometimes, the hardest part of becoming wealthy is learning how to handle it. In 1993, in Missouri, United States, Janite Lee was living a modest but hard-working life. Born in South Korea, Janet built a new life in America through years of determination and hard work. Before winning the lottery, she owned a small wig shop in St. Louis and worked hard to support herself and her family. At the time, Janite was married to Robert Lee, and together, they were raising their daughter. The family had a normal middle-class lifestyle and never expected that one lottery ticket would completely change their future. Then, everything changed. Janite won an incredible $18 million Missouri lottery jackpot. Overnight, the family went from running a small business to managing a multi-million-dollar fortune. At first, the money seemed like an opportunity to create a better future. Janite wanted her success to benefit not only her family but also the community around her. She donated large amounts of money to charities, supported educational programs, and became involved in organizations she believed in. The sudden wealth also transformed the family's lifestyle. A more expensive home, increased spending, and larger financial commitments became part of everyday life. Janite also became known for her political and community involvement, donating significant amounts of money to causes she supported. For a while, everything seemed successful. But behind the scenes, maintaining that lifestyle required careful financial planning. The biggest problem was that the family did not create a long-term strategy to protect the fortune. Large donations, personal expenses, and financial obligations continued to grow. The money that once seemed unlimited slowly started disappearing. By 2001, less than 10 years after winning the jackpot, Janite Lee filed for bankruptcy. The fortune that had once promised financial freedom had become a source of financial pressure. Unlike some lottery winners who lost their money because of reckless spending, Janite's story was more complicated. Her goal was often to help others. She wanted to support her family, her community, and causes that mattered to her. But even generosity requires financial boundaries. Without careful planning, a large fortune can disappear faster than expected. Janite Lee passed away in 2018 at the age of 77. Her story remains a powerful reminder that wealth is not only about how much money someone receives, it is also about having the knowledge and discipline to manage it, because winning millions can happen in one day. But protecting millions takes a lifetime. These 5 stories prove one simple lesson. Winning millions of dollars is easy compared to knowing how to keep it. Money can create incredible opportunities, but without financial knowledge and discipline, even a fortune can disappear. Because true wealth is not just about how much money you have. It's about knowing what to do with it. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more stories about money, business, and the lessons behind the world's biggest financial successes and failures.